Norse legends tell the tale of Leif Erikson's voyage to a vast continent far to the west of Greenland. This previously unknown land was named Vinland, but exactly how much of the story is fact and how much of it is fiction? Here I will attempt to separate the truth from the myths, using evidence compiled from the Icelandic sagas, as well as more recent scientific and archaeological discoveries. According to the sagas, Vinland was so named because of the large quantities of fresh grapes which supposedly grew there. However, in modern times, many attempts have been made to retrace the Vikings' route from Greenland to this mythical land of vineyards, using the directions and descriptions described in the sagas. No grapes have been found anywhere near the location of Leif Erikson's settlement. Theories. Number 1. The Viking explorers could have traded with the native people and, through them, learned about and sampled the grapes. Number 2. Vin could also translate to meadow in the Old Norse language, so perhaps Vinland is actually meadowland. Number 3. It is possible that they travelled further south than we originally thought. From the descriptions of voyages attested to in the sagas, Vinland's most likely location would be Labrador in Newfoundland, Canada. Many archaeological excavations have also unearthed Viking remains and items in that area. However, considering that even the most hardy of vessels during that period struggled even when sailing the relatively short distance from Iceland to Greenland, it does seem rather far-fetched that the adventuring Vikings would have made it that far. Theories. Number 1. Maybe they just struck lucky with favourable weather and ocean currents. Number 2. Perhaps the vessels were suitably modified to withstand the potentially perilous journey ahead of them. Number 3. It is possible that a traveller who had already been to Vinland told the Vikings how to get there. Number 4. Maybe Vinland wasn't Canada, as is now generally assumed. It is possible that they could have mistaken location after losing their bearings on the open ocean, which would also account for the lengthy journey of around 3 weeks, despite potentially not travelling such a large distance. It is said that no Western white person had ever been to Vinland prior to Leif and his crew, but there are rumours to suggest that when they went ashore and began exploring, there was evidence of a potential Western settlement which has since been abandoned. Theories. Number 1. It is possible that Leif and his crew lied to accrue more fame and fortune, and take full credit for the discovery. After all, there is evidence to suggest that a small community of Irish monks already lived in Iceland before Leif's father, Eric the Red, claimed the supposedly uninhabited island. Number 2. Perhaps the idea of Leif not being the first Westerner in Vinland was propagated by the church to cast doubt upon his credibility. Christians wrote the sagas hundreds of years after these events, by which time paganism had been all but eradicated, so there could be a certain amount of twisting the truth involved here. The legends state that the Vikings successfully settled in Vinland, but it depends on how you define successful, as some stories claim that the Northmen were only living there for a few years before being defeated by the indigenous population. After a few years had passed with no word from the remote Vinland outpost, a search party was sent out from Greenland and Iceland. When the party arrived, they discovered that the settlement had been abandoned, and no one ever heard from the absent settlers again. Theories. Number 1. Perhaps the Viking settlers travelled further afield and settled somewhere else, or lost their way and perished in the process. Number 2. Maybe the Skraelings, or native people, enslaved or murdered them all. Conclusion. It's hard to know what to think regarding the subject of Vinland, as the only written accounts we have were created hundreds of years later by Christians. However, I'm inclined to believe the following. Leif Erikson wasn't the first Westerner in Vinland, but he was the first to truly leave his mark. Vinland was so named because of its meadows. This would correlate with the original theory that Vinland was actually Newfoundland. Although, I guess the settlers could have explored further afield and found vineyards, but this seems far-fetched to me as no evidence has been found any further south. The Viking settlers were either captured or murdered by the Skraelings. I believe that some Vikings must have mated with Skraeling women, although whether consensual or forced, I'm not too sure, as when Christopher Columbus officially discovered America a few centuries later, he reported seeing white and half-caste natives. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.